they are rooted in the process enlisted in 2004, when the bishops across England and Wales invited families to tell them what they need from their church, about their joys and their sorrows. And we heard an awful lot. 15,000 families took part. The responses were listened to at a series of diocesan days around the country, 19 in all. And as a result of that, the faith issues were talked about a great deal. I don't know if you can read that, and you haven't got the slides, but there are, on the table with the flowers, there's lots of handouts, and one of the handouts that you can freely take is a little summary of the list in 2004 families. Every diocesan conversation, without exception, parents, grandparents talked about their anxieties and challenges of passing on faith. We were asked about more support for how to pray with children, discussing the moral issues of the day, how to share gospel values, challenging behaviour, what happens when children don't want to come to church anymore, and this big question about what faith sort of really means. Is it judged by bums on seats on Sunday, whether our children come with us to Mass? Or can we see a value in our passing on the practice of the faith in terms of social action and being kind to one another and living a good life? And so there were three big projects that came out of this in 2004, but this one that we're focused on now, the third in the sequence, the bishops recognised these big questions about faith and missioned this project to tackle these three objectives, to kind of resource parents and grandparents in what the Church describes as an irreplaceable and inalienable task of passing on faith in God, to establish what passing on the faith means. That's a big one. I'm not sure that we've really done that yet, but you probably have a better idea by the time we go away today. And to identify the complementarity between home, school and parish. Who's responsible for what? So that was April 2005, the bishops asked the Celebrating Family Project to look at that. You'll know that the first project was on Everybody's Welcome, developing family-friendly parishes, and we'll hear more about that today. And the second phase was about home is a holy place, to raise awareness of the spirituality of the home. While those other two projects were going on, the Passing on the Faith working group did meet. We met, for all these years we've been meeting, and during the work on Home is a Holy Place we combined with that group because the symposium that led to the development of the resource pack, there was so much to do that it needed more people. So after Home is a Holy Place had sort of been distributed, the pack had gone out, we reconvened. And the first thing we did was organise a national conversation in 2009 to invite people who work in diocesan roles in home, school and parish to talk about the partnership, to kind of clarify those roles. We were kind of looking for examples of good practice, I think, and we had examples of good practice there, and we used that to animate a conversation. But what came out of the day, we had Father Des Seddon was the kind of closing speaker, and he made an impassioned plea for us to look again at this partnership. He said it's a partnership that's respected almost in words rather than in action. He said it's a pearl of great price. And it's kind of special, I think, to England and Wales in some ways, to our kind of Catholicism. We have this three-legged stool. We have national guidelines for the project on living and sharing our faith that, really frames the whole project in terms of the different roles of the home, school and parish. People who were at that conference, they asked us to look at making resources available so that that kind of national conversation could take place locally, because that's people on the ground, they're the ones we need to engage with this conversation. So this is why we ended up developing the Partners in a Shared Task process. The title comes from the national guidelines for the Living and Sharing Our Faith project. But when we looked at those guidelines, and it said that it's very important to be clear, we never found a definition, or we never found any work that had been done to clarify the different roles. So we devised partners in a shared task to attempt to clarify the roles. And we conceived it as a local conversation in a diocese, perhaps a deanery, or even a parish, where the different partners would meet in discrete groups. So you'd have a group of parents and grandparents, a group of teachers, head teachers, a group of catechists and priests, sort of the homeschool parish, and each partner would talk about their own role. What is it that we do to pass on faith in God? What is it that we need? What sort of help do we need in order to do that? What do those other two partners do? And what's our role in supporting them? So that was the concept. And the idea was, after those discrete conversations had taken place, those who were listening, all the people who were listening, could then begin to see the overlap, the convergence, the points of agreement. You know, if everybody agreed that the role of a parent and a grandparent is to teach children the Our Father and the Hail Mary, then that's where we put our effort, amongst other things. But you can see there's energy there where there's agreement. But if there's divergent understandings, then that's clearly where we need further conversation to tease out what's going on here. So that process was aiming to identify, clarify the individual partners' visions of their role, any kind of coinciding visions between perhaps home and parish, or school and parish, or school and home, and the core bit where all three are in agreement. And what we're going to present to you today are the bits where everybody's in agreement. When we mooted this process, we wanted to try it out before bringing it to you at an event like this. And this was a time when the Pope was coming, so of course everybody was very occupied with plenty of other things. So members of the working group agreed to pilot it in their own diocese, and you'll hear from them today: Liverpool, Plymouth and Middlesbrough. They all did the process very differently. So when you go into your circuit workshops now, we'd really like you to listen out for those differences in process and in outcomes. In your packs you have a scribble sheet. You only have one. I should have given you three really, but I'm sure you'll be able to sort out for yourself what you're picking up from each one. Listen out for the differences between the pilots. You're going to have 20 minutes to listen to each one, and I'm going to sit down a minute and let Andrew instruct you on that. See if any kind of core values are surfacing for you in what you're hearing, because we're going to talk about this later on. And what strikes you from what you're hearing about the role of parents and grandparents in passing on faith in God? Does that sound okay? So we're going to go into circuit workshops, and then we'll come back and talk about it afterwards. All right? Any questions about the background? Okay, well, I'll hand over to Andrew there.